It is No Gifts Please, the parenting podcast by the pair with no real gifts, but a whole lot of gumption. Hey everyone, I'm Steve Noviello.
And I'm Jenny Anchondo.
And as if it's not terrifying enough to have one conversation with your children about pornography and sex, we're having two 25-minute conversations.
Well, to the point that we learned earlier, and I will say, go ahead and listen to this episode, but listen to the last one if you haven't heard it already. It's like it's reminding us with so many things, this period talk, all kinds of stuff. It's like a multitude of conversations. There is not just one talk anymore, parents. We have to talk about this stuff constantly, and that's what we're learning. So
yes.
We're going to keep talking about it here too.
So we have two guests today. In my corner, my friend Chris Edwards, who we were having a conversation about this over lunch, frankly. I mean, he's got a 12-year-old son. Mm-hmm. My son, our oldest, is 9. It's going to come up. It scares me, the things that they're going to find in the dark corners of the internet. But our guest on this side of the table says, listen, if you've been having a healthy conversation with your kids about stuff in general all the time, that really helps with the fear because you've created this environment of ease and comfort when it comes to having a discussion.
Right. So Chris had the idea of doing the podcast. We said we certainly are not experts in anything, much less how to talk to your kids about porn. So we brought in Nikki, who we'll just set the stage with. She is a board certified licensed clinical social worker, master's, 30 years of experience. More specifically on this topic, she created a curriculum, sexual health curriculum that's been going on for more than a decade. She speaks to large groups, a lot of the public and private schools around town to help people have these age-appropriate conversations. Part 1 was last week. Part 2 is now.
Right now. All right. So I want to start actually with something that Chris kind of brought up as we were kind of discussing what part 2 is going to look like. And you made the really good point that I feel like a lot of times we have these conversations around sex and pornography and children and what's appropriate. And the one thing that we don't talk about it seems to be all very the warnings and the rules and the And at the end of the day, I mean, listen, sex is fun and it's enjoyable and it's kind of a it's a tightrope that you kind of walk. Like nobody really talks about that part.
Right. You're told as a kid that like, don't do this, or if you do that, you got to be real careful here. Or, it's all very nerve wracking. And then at the end of the day, you're with a partner and you're like, well, this is rad. This is what we're supposed to be doing.
Or you have issues because your whole life you've been scared. I think that happens in adult relationships too.
Sure. That
somebody's heard, they either, say, okay, well, this is really fun. Nobody told me this was fun. They were only telling me that I would get pregnant immediately if somebody kissed me. Or I think the opposite can happen where you're a full grown man or woman and you're not able to let loose and enjoy it. Mm-hmm. Sure. So I wonder if that can happen too.
Right. I think, Nikki, the hesitancy that I think a lot of parents have is they feel like to do anything other than tell a cautionary tale makes them an advocate for early sexual behavior in their children, which people don't want. But that's not necessarily the case.
It's not necessarily the case because actually comprehensive sexual health education actually delays the onset of sexual behavior and sexual intercourse. And which feels counterintuitive to parents, because a lot of parents are like, oh my gosh, you're robbing my children of their innocence by talking about these things. But again, it's doing the opposite. It's actually prevention. It helps them develop confidence and all of that. There's no such thing as a birds and bees conversation anymore, which a lot of parents, when we were growing up, it was that one and done conversation. Well, there is no more one and done, which is the good news. I want to let you off the hook on that. You don't have to have all the conversations right now or that one time, the opportunity is going to come back. It always does, right? So just start where they are about what is the issue at hand, what was the situation at hand, what was the question at hand. And remember with kids, especially as they get older, you only have their attention for 2 minutes.
Okay.
Right? So do the best you can in those 2 minutes and then keep the door open, right? And then maybe that conversation, a heavier conversation happened at 10 years old or 11 years old. Well, then they're going to be 13 and 14, and then it's going to happen again, and it's going to be a new conversation on the same topic, but we're going to want to relay new information, right? don't put that much pressure on yourself as parents to think, this is it. It's one and done. If I don't say it all, it's over and my kid is doomed, because that's not it, right? And I always, and it's kind of a funny thing with some of my friends, I always say the revisit is a great thing, right? Where, say you walk away from a conversation, especially about something as serious as pornography, and you sleep on it and you wake up the next morning and you're like, oh my gosh, there was really one more thing I wanted to say. There's nothing wrong with circling back or revisiting and saying to your son or daughter, remember that conversation we had the other day?
Yeah.
There was something else that I really wanted to share with you. And then you can have that conversation.
It reminds them they can do the same too.
Exactly.
They can circle back.
The door's open.
So we're going to get into talking about older kids, teens, that sort of thing. But I do have one more question sort of on that prevention side. If you're a household that's kids don't have phones, you don't have screens, you don't have iPad access, that sort of thing. But a lot of friends do. So that's our situation where friends may come over, a girl may have a cell phone or a computer. Is there any verbiage that can make me not weird or let the other parents know I'm not judging you, I'm just trying to make sure that I know what parental controls are on in my house?
Can I ask real quick, what's the prevention in this scenario?
To have my daughter looking up things on the internet that I'm not there with her for, because we don't do iPads, we don't do phones, we don't do
right. So she's suddenly in her bedroom with a friend who's over, who's got a cell phone and access to the web.
Right. But it's not prevention of like this conversation's going to happen between them.
No, but she's 8, so
more
so
exposure,
for
a fear of exposure.
Yeah, I mean, even just profanity, and it's not even just like pornography. It's like things that shows I wouldn't let her watch, shows that we wouldn't be into in our house, different perspectives. That it's like, okay, that would be more something I would watch with her. So I wouldn't leave it up to somebody else's child to bring that up to her in our house. Nor would I want to be responsible for content that was viewed in my house. So how do you make that not weird with another parent if they're saying, hey, but my kid needs to have their phone and like I need to be able to text them anytime, that sort of thing?
I think that, and this really is tied to the sexual health conversation, it's about values, right? We all have different parenting styles.
Sure.
Right? And I could say that if with having a healthy relationship with your child, they know what the rules are in the house. It's perfectly natural to reiterate them, in the presence of a guest, and say, I know you guys are going to have a blast and it's totally fine to hang out in her room and whatever, remember that we have some rules about, electronics, and then maybe list them briefly, 1, 2, or 3, and tell them to go have fun. So you're saying, I trust you, but I'm also stating what's acceptable and what we're comfortable with here.
Sure.
Just like in a sexual health conversation, you're going to interject your values. You're going to use your own language and wording that's going to fit with your parenting style and your family. So I would just keep it kind of on the light side.
Sure.
Where you love having everybody over and it's great. These are our rules. I hope everybody's comfortable with that, because we can't always expect, unfortunately, right? Can't always expect that other families are going to do things the way that we do.
Sure.
So we have to hope that our children have that internal control.
Right. Well, it's recording too. I mean, that's the other thing too, is recording, changing bedrooms, all that kind of stuff. We don't do any kind of thing that could be recorded in a closed room. 99.9% of the time it's going to be innocent, but I wouldn't want it to be from my house when it's not.
My other question is kind of on the flip side there. So like we were talking about, listen, kids who do have access to the internet, to devices, who hear a term on the playground and say, oh, I pretended to know what that was. And let me go Google that now. And now they're seeing something on the internet that might be a little more intense than than it needs to be for them. What does that look like as a parent? Because again, we kind of joked about the examples of, leaving a magazine in your son's sock drawer to say that. But to me, the messaging there was this in this format, in this size, at this intensity I'm letting you know this is appropriate for your age. Is there a digital equivalent to that? Like where you're like, okay, listen, I know you're on the internet looking at stuff,
question,
like short of sitting down and looking for porn with your kids, which I feel like is weird.
Also, with the magazine example, though, that's not age appropriate. we've all collectively decided that 18 was the age appropriate.
Come on. But you know, like, how do you? It's so much less finite than when I was a kid, right? And they were saying, hey, this particular piece of, you know, the Sears catalog, the National Geographic, these things had finite levels of intensity to them, right? But this does.
That's a good
This
question.
does not. So how do you deal with that in terms of helping your child navigate a digital relationship with pornography, for lack of a better term?
This is a tricky question.
Yeah.
Because I think we need to be very careful to give permission for our children to view pornography. I think it's a slippery slope.
Should give it or should be careful to give it?
Careful not to give it. We do not want to give permission for our children to view
at any age.
It's
because I would imagine, listen, by the time it's appropriate to give permission, they're good already. Correct.
That's
yes.
exactly right. And you have built the foundation, and hopefully they have that internal locus of control, that impulse control, that regulation that you've raised them with. But pornography is tricky because what it does to the brain is like addiction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So to use the example of cocaine, but quite literally, the same part of the brain that is lit up when you do cocaine, okay, is the same part of the brain that lights up when you view pornography. So this is where addiction comes into play, or the conversation, because if you get that rush, right, you want more of it.
Mm-hmm.
So then you start viewing more, and then you want more, and then it's not enough, and then you want raunchier, and you want, more frequent, and all the things, right? So we have to be having conversations with kids as they get older about what appropriate, if they're going to view it, which you are not telling them they cannot view it. You understand that it may feel pleasurable, and you're okay if they want to do that in the privacy of their bedroom, but that there are certain things they need to understand, that this is not what a healthy relationship looks like. We don't want to transfer what we're seeing in pornography into what we think needs to be happening in our relationship with our boyfriend or girlfriend, okay? And they need to understand that the more they view it, the more susceptible they are to wanting more of it, and that becomes dangerous. Mm-hmm. And that is a conversation about porn addiction that can happen later, not at 12 when we first start talking about it, right?
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Is porn addiction a huge problem? Are we overly concerned about it? Is it something that should be on our radar? And is there differentiation between male, female?
Porn addiction is a huge problem.
For young people.
Yes, for young people. And we're seeing more and more of it statistically. I mean, we're getting way up there.
What does it look like? What are the signs?
It's a great question. The signs of porn addiction are frequent viewing, which you can see in their browser. Okay, maybe they're locking themselves in their rooms for extended periods of time. Isolation. Frequent masturbation. So masturbation is normal and healthy, right? And another great conversation to have with children, but you'll see like more of it, or you'll have clues or indications. Evidence of frequent masturbation. You'll also maybe hear that the way they talk about sex or relationships in a way that may make you concerned. Maybe they're talking about violence or stereotypes about what girls should do to their partner or what males are expected to do.
More objectification.
And that's, you just took the words right out of my mouth. Or objectifying, the males and females, right? And it puts so much pressure on these kids that their bodies should look a certain way, or that they're supposed to feel a certain way or behave a certain way, because it's supposed to look like the pornography, which is deceptive and confusing. And
Without getting too deep into it, are there any are there filters? Are there things you're recommending? Is there specifically like, hey, use this filter because it's really good? Or what am I doing with my home computer?
So depending on the age of your children, and I really am a strong believer that it's about mentoring and not monitoring. Mm-hmm. Okay. When I say that, I mean, yes, we are going to do some monitoring, but we don't want to prohibit, okay, the use of certain things or doing certain things on the internet. We want to be able to have conversations so our kids know what's right and what's wrong, so that as they get older, right, you're not going to always be there to tell them you need a life preserver to go into the pool, like we were talking about earlier. So regarding the filters, I do think we need parental controls, and I think that we can. They do change the kinds of parental controls and filters that you can have on your computers and devices will change as the kids get older and the more you see what their usage looks like, right? And there's all kinds of filters and parental control apps out there. And so I encourage all parents to look into what, and I have some information on my website too. Mm-hmm. Okay. There's so much information out there about this because it's a concern for parents. But I think directly to answer your question, there are filters that we should be using, but they should come with a conversation with our children about why they're there.
Not just a stop sign.
Yeah, right. Not just a stop sign. It's like, let's talk about why we're doing this. And and to this point, but also back to what you were saying earlier about kids in your home or how do we talk to parents, it's really about trust. Right? And you want to build trust. So I always say, they're innocent till proven guilty. So give them the opportunity to show you that they can behave the way that you're asking them and that they know they're supposed to behave. And when they don't, then we have a conversation and we put consequences or regulations in place to try and monitor it a little more strictly.
Chris, in the time we left, we've got you here as well. What questions are we not answering that you were hoping when you suggested we should talk about this would get answered?
I think there's, to your point about building trust and all that, that's great. At some point that goes away. I mean, when you're just, you hit teenage and you're like, people suck,
right. Yeah.
Yes.
And they're wrong. And again, when I was a kid in junior high and all that, the only stuff coming out about sex from adults was
don't
panic.
Why it was bad.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
You're and I'm like, I know you're lying. I know you're lying. So I'm not going to ask there. That's not where I'm going to ask. So you're talking to friends. I had older brothers. It's stuff like that. So it's where and as you brought up earlier, I think you guys had a pocket. Was it your boys that were wondering about the difference between reality TV?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So similar type of deal when you talk about, what is sex? Oh, it's when two people that love each other get into the whole thing. Right. And then you go and you see some insane video on the internet and the context isn't there. And it's just like anything else. It's all fake. Anytime you put a camera on anything, it's fake. It's controlled in some capacity
and edited
and we have different genres of movies. We can watch the action movie tonight, but you guys aren't old enough for horror. I don't know where that lands in pornography. It's sure, a Playboy magazine is pretty innocuous in terms of what's available.
Sure.
But again, everything is available, and I'm not so much interested, or I shouldn't say I'm not interested, but I know there's technical things we can do. We can lock up our routers and things like that. But it's where I really am curious about is how to speak positively about it, because it's one of these things that people get into their, they go through adolescence, they get into their first big relationship, even their fifth big relationship, and don't know how to communicate desires or even understand what it is that they're after or what they're interested in or what their partner might like. And so again, it's like you go back to this well of absolute chaos of trying to find it. It's YouTube without.
Right. Yeah. No,
I don't know.
sure.
Like, I don't know about this thing. I'm going to, Google it, see what's there. And it's like, you get a whole spectrum of stuff. And I don't know how to like categorize, like, that's not so bad. Like, you're not ready for that. Like that. Am I going to be there to be like, you're not ready for this? Like, this is too much for you. So
we have to remember that the way that we learned best was by experiment. Right?
Sure.
We have to be allowed to test the waters, right? And figure out what works for us. And that's no different with sex than any other thing, right? Starting out as kissing, and then maybe it's touching, and then it goes into more intimate acts, right? And it's really important, I think, and what you're asking is so not simple, and so I don't want to simplify it. What is really important is to continue to have conversations where they don't feel that sex is bad or that it's anything to be ashamed of or not talk about, right? But instead, giving them the opening to say, it's a wonderful way to express love. And it feels good when it's with the right person. And so to be able to have those age-appropriate, developmentally appropriate conversations with our kids, as it feels as the need arises, as it feels fit for the situation and where your child is developmentally, not every 12-year-old is the same. Not every 17-year-old is the same, right? So again, taking some pressure off yourself to feel like you have to say all the things, but it's okay to say that sex feels good and that it's okay if you're protected. So that's a conversation that you're having if your child is thinking about being sexually active, not with your child who's wondering about, like, should I let him kiss me, right? So again, we have to keep it age appropriate, but also let our words and our conversations match the situation. We want to talk up a little bit, but not so much that it confuses them or scares them. Because if we're introducing concepts that they aren't even ready for, then that can open up a whole can of worms, right? I think that the idea of sex and pleasure and conversations about that with our children at the appropriate age for your specific child is 100%. It's not only appropriate, it should happen. It needs to happen.
I think the difficulty comes to your point, about exposure. In our generation, we were exposed to ants. These kids are exposed to elephants, and it's like, what the heck is,
not knowing which is which.
Correct. Exactly. Right. Like, I'm hopeful in your answer from earlier when we were talking about most children that exist in a family where you've laid the groundwork to have these conversations where it's not this really crazy taboo thing that you're going to have. And it's not necessarily an awkward conversation, as awkward as it may be in the neighbor's house who's never had any talk about anything, that we just keep our fingers crossed that hopefully that trains our children to know when they see something on the internet that may be way out of whack with what the reality is of what sex should be about between two people, that hopefully we've done our job as parents that they know the difference.
Because they're going to have exposure at their friend's house more likely than having
just not mine.
Just not yours, Jenny.
Well, that's the
just
solution.
Not Jenny's.
Your children need to become friends with Jenny's kids because she doesn't allow any sort of electronics in her house. And there you have it. We've solved the world's problems.
It's just my own TV show they can watch in our podcast. I don't see the problem here. You get everything you need there.
Listen, we want to thank both of you for coming in. First of all, Chris, for even introducing the topic, because I think it's so important, to do.
Great show idea.
And again, for all of your wisdom, this is, you talk about this all the time, but for the rest of us, unfortunately, it is a little awkward, and you've made it really, really easy today. So thank you.
And Miki, I want parents to be able to gather your resources from your website, potentially book you if they think that you would be an important speaker for their school or their group or their nonprofit. So give a shout out to how people can get a hold of you.
Thank you. I'm on Instagram. my handle is
Yeah,
that always
you got it. Nailed it.
Miki Johnston Therapy, and my first name is M like mom, I-K-I, Johnston with a T, and my website is Miki Johnston Therapy. My email is Miki Johnston Therapy, so those are the best ways to reach me. I would love to speak to anybody's group, to businesses. I do teacher workshops and business development, and speak to NCLs and YMSLs on a variety of topics. So
perfect. We will link all that information in our show notes as well. Chris, the Dad's Club pumpkin carving is probably just a few weeks from now at this point. I'll be back.
I've already started.
Oh, I'll see you there. I'll see you there. Hey, we'll see you every Tuesday when a new episode drops. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform. Be sure to click like and subscribe so we can continue to do the thing that we love to do, which is to bring you a new episode every week. And if you do nothing else today, go find yourself a friend you don't need to clean the house for. We'll see you next time.